Okay, so I was at Disneyland yesterday. Okay, got to check out the new Toontown and everything. And there is a lot going on in that land that people are just not talking about. And it's really, really surprising. At least I don't hear any talk about a lot of this stuff. Now, I want to start off with the audio package and the music in the land. And I haven't heard any other content creator or any fan really mention this on Twitter or YouTube or anything. When you walk into Toontown now, underneath the railroad tracks, you can hear above you like a cartoon train of some sort. Okay. Now, I found this very, very interesting. I thought that was a very clever use of the audio package to kind of do that. When you walk under, you hear this cartoon train, all this hustle and bustle right above you. Very, very cool. And nobody is talking about it. Why? That's an awesome element that they sort of sprinkled into this new Toontown. As you go beyond that, you're immediately met with like cartoon birds, like chirping and singing in the trees. Again, nobody is talking about that. This is very, very cool stuff here. And it's funny to me how it's been largely ignored, right? Another thing connected to the audio package and what have you is the music. The music is crazy good. Now, when I was waiting in line to get one of those sippers, I had a lot of time to sit there, right? The line was like a half an hour, 40 minutes. And I was listening to the music, and they've incorporated a lot of the Disney afternoon into this background music. I noticed a lot from a Goofy movie, but kind of done as this kind of bluegrassy kind of vibe. I noticed a lot from like DuckTales and what have you. Love that. Look, Toontown opened in the early 90s. It's really, really cool in my opinion that it's leaning into that 90s energy right now. Fantastic stuff. Again, this is all really great stuff here. And I was really impressed by everything that I heard in the land. Overall, seeing it in person, I think the execution was fantastic. I think still the weakest part is for sure that wishing tree. Not great, not great. But everything else looked really good, and it was really, really busy. So it does look like it is a huge, huge success. So overall, pretty awesome stuff here.
Yeah, the wishing tree didn't quite work out. It was interesting because I heard Tom Corliss's review of the land from himself, and I kind of agree with him. I mean, when it comes to where stroller parking wound up, right now it's taking over one of the picnic areas and looks a little bit unsightly, right? But like, could we foresee them moving these strollers to a redone Dreamer's Tree area? I think we could, and maybe not be the biggest loss, right? It's definitely the weakest part of the land, which was unfortunate. But it's interesting how you talk about music there, OG, because I think they were saying that they wanted to go for like almost a spa-like atmosphere with their music choice, which is kind of interesting, but I think what they mean is more relaxing in nature, right? A little bit less upbeat, a little bit more melodic in a way that is a little bit more serene, a little bit more peaceful, especially to go with that picnic atmosphere.
It's weird. I didn't get that energy from it at all. I kind of felt it was more of a kind of a toony version of Main Street music, to be honest.
Really?
Or a toony version of Critter Country or something. I didn't really get the spa thing. That's an interesting kind of way that they're framing that. That's interesting. Now, in terms of the stroller parking, it is absolutely unsightly. The issue with the stroller parking is it's going to be unsightly no matter where you put it. So,
oh yes, absolutely. But it's unfortunate that they take up the green space with.
But I would have the strollers block that unsightly looking tree. It's
yeah.
Because when we actually were walking around this area where we met up with a good friend of the channel, Marty Snyder. Shout out to Marty. We met up with him and his family where everyone was like, the kids were playing and running around. I felt it was more cohesive to the land than what supposedly what the wishing tree or the dreamer's tree, whatever it was called, what I basically call it now, the piece of shit tree. That's exactly what it is. With roots popping up and up through the ground. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's not
the
it's not the
concept art,
greatest.
and this was such a disparity. Unfortunately,
That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's the problem. It was such a gap between the concept and the reality. I mean, when you go to the land, it's not a total eyesore. It's not like the worst thing ever. It does look better than this picture, I think, in person. You really don't even see the hills in this picture. I mean, when you see it in person, it's very hilly. It's not flat at all. You know?
No.
It's a different thing in person, but it still doesn't look good in person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the greatest decision, Disney. Now you do lose a little bit of that picnic area with the stroller parking, but they make up for it over by Mickey's house. There's a pretty sizable piece of lawn over there, and over where the Chippendale Treehouse used to be. There's also, they added a pretty big space of grass over there as well. So still a lot of areas you can picnic. I don't know. The stroller thing has become a real problem at Disney over the last 20, 30 years. And I don't know what it is, because you look at old pictures and video of the park in like the 50s and 60s and 70s, they didn't have this. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I know,
because back in the day, you had your kids get up and walk.
Yeah, I don't know what is this about? You guys, I mean, what do you think, Dre? Why are we seeing more?
Well, and this is kind of painful for this area, because it was an area that really played to kids that would require strollers. So there had to be a place for stroller parking that wasn't included in the land, unfortunately. And this is the end result right here. And this has always been, I mean, if you saw the long, just mile long aisle, just rows and rows and rows and rows of strollers that used to occupy the space adjacent to Small World as you were leading into Toontown. It was wild how many strollers you actually had there. I do agree with you, OG. This has become kind of an issue, especially with the double wides and stuff that are coming in. It's like, we gotta do something about this. And I know they attempted to kind of reduce the size of strollers that were actually coming in by having strict guidelines. Well, then you just claim, oh, well, it's my child needs it for this and this reason. They red tag it, now you can go in. So it didn't really have much teeth to that policy, which was unfortunate. It is just becoming kind of a real issue, especially for Disneyland specifically. I mean, look, World Showcase, right? When you have a stroller out there, you can park it and you don't even see it. They're so vast, the walkways and the ability for people to get around these things is just uninhibited whatsoever, or unhindered whatsoever. But when you have Disneyland, and this park was built in the 50s, and now it's like, you have a modern context where people are getting taller, they're getting wider, and they have more kids, and they have big strollers, and they have all these things that they bring with them for a day at Disneyland. Now you have wheelchairs and electric wheelchairs and so forth, and now it's like, now you've got kind of an issue here, and this is something that probably needs to get addressed here.
Well, and I do think,
soonish.
And I do think it does, and not to kind of bring up kind of controversial stuff, but why not? Because there are even fans that decide to use strollers to how do I put it? Bring in their older kids and kind of getting away with not having to purchase a ticket for them, so to speak.
Oh.
So the bigger the stroller, the bigger the person you could fit in the stroller.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And that, I think that's definitely an element here, George. Let's be completely honest. I think that is. It's just weird to me that we're seeing so many when we didn't just a few decades ago. I mean, I understand that we have more population right now, but
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. It just seems weird to me, and I think there is an element of abuse there where people are kind of hacking the system to sort of get in there.
Maybe a little bit of that's going on, but you have had an increase in stroller usage, and I'm telling you, man. I mean, I'm like, I remember like a decade ago seeing just a huge line of strollers occupying like half of the walkway going into Toontown. I'm just going like, oh my gosh, this is insane, you know? And the problem's only gotten worse ever since. Yeah, Disney fan. I hate those huge side by side strollers. I do agree with you. They got to do something about that. And even like Disney's own strollers do that now. It's like, man,
Right.
you gotta single file, one after the other, not side by side. Yeah, can they increase the size of the building storage behind Roger Rabbit? Yeah,
It's an
that's
idea.
the thing. It is an idea. I don't know if there's space there because Roger Rabbit comes up right against Small World.
Right.
And so you only have this like little corner there. That should have been retrofitted for stroller storage so that people can actually go in that space freely and not have to have a cast member, do it for them and so forth. I think that would have alleviated some of this issue for sure. But not having an actual stroller space inside Mickey's Toontown, and I know they're pressed for space as it is. That was a little bit of an omission that should have been probably thought out on the logistical side beforehand. Again, this is ops versus WDI, right?
Right. 100%. Now, what we're looking at here are some pictures from yesterday.
Yeah.
And this land was absolutely packed. I mean, Disney, I'm telling, they have a hit on their hands with this new Toontown. I have not seen Toontown this busy in I don't remember how long. It was shoulder to shoulder. The lines for the food and the merch were like snaked all through the land. I mean, look at this. It was absolutely insane.
Wild.
And look, this is a very smart investment from Disney. It was relatively inexpensive to kind of imagine the land. A lot of it's paint and fake grass, right? I understand the attraction is the bulk of the investment, but really for a fairly small amount, they're getting a pretty good return on that investment. I mean, look, I gotta be real. We were just at Super Nintendo World at Universal, and the crowds at Toontown, this 30-year-old land, was just as busy as the new bright and shiny new thing over at Universal. And that's just as busy.
That's 3 acres, by the way, versus a little bit over 1 at Super Nintendo World. And then you have 3 attractions sucking up all these people rather than just 1. So this was quite the disparity here in terms of just attendance or how many people can even be in the land at any given time. And like you said, I mean, we're talking probably $20 to $30 million investment at most, And look at how revitalized this has been, not just in terms of what is offered in the land, but in terms of the people and the interest level amongst guests. It's fascinating to see this, and maybe this is a template for other lands to have a similar process done, maybe on a different kind of level when it comes to maybe someplace like Galaxy's Edge, which right now is only you only stop in there to ride Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run or Rise of Resistance, maybe get something at Ronto Roasters, and then you're out, right? Could we integrate something that has a package in which, maybe has some of the interactive elements, not Toontown specifically, but maybe some interactive elements that they were talking about implementing before, maybe some characters, maybe some stuff that really kind of revitalizes that land. And then this might also be a template for Tomorrowland, which desperately needs something with all those dead spaces.
Well, a couple of things on that point, Dre. You bring up a lot of fantastic points in there. Tomorrowland, yes, I do think this is a template to some degree. Disney's really getting into this kind of this sense of community, these communal spaces like the fake grass and what have you. I think that's going to be incorporated into any new Tomorrowland. These spaces where people can kind of congregate, number one. But number two, Disney's looking at the success of Toontown. And there is an expansion pad behind Toontown in between Galaxy's Edge.
Yep.
Hey, we all assumed that space would be used for Star Wars. Maybe not now. They've seen how popular Toontown and these characters and even the Disney Afternoon characters are. Mm-hmm. What if that space is utilized for a Duckburg expansion or something along those lines? It's possible, and I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. That's fascinating stuff. We'll see how it. Yeah.
I think this definitely superseded expectations. I mean, and they didn't do all that much to it, to be honest. They just kind of built on what worked ever since 1992, and they took out some of the things that were dead or didn't work and replaced them with things that did. And it's just amazing.
Which really goes to show you how something so simple Disney has to do just to gain audience attention. That's all
Yeah.
you need. Something simple. You don't need to do something overly abundance. Just tweak some things, change some things, add some things.
Sure.
That's enough for us fans. Give us something new. Give us something fresh. I mean, with of how popular that it looks like Toontown has become. I mean, I can imagine because, again, I hate using this term of Disneyland being a locals park, but it's just there's more locals that go to the park than travelers. But I could imagine when Pandora comes to the massive success that if we think that Toontown is packed, that I could imagine what Pandora is going to end up looking like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And again, even with the fake grass and everything, because Pandora is so much organic to nature that it would also benefit too
Maybe.
by putting that in as well.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe.
Andrew Kellogg has an interesting point. We've speculated a lot on this channel about where's Avatar going to go. I mean, we all on this channel we're thinking the Autopia, Subs, and Motorboat area and reroute the monorail.
Pretty sure.
But Andrew has an interesting idea, saying that he's been hearing that space between Galaxy's Edge and Toontown would be Pandora. Now, Dre,
how much of an I was just going to ask how much
Yeah.
of how much of acreage is that expansion pad between the two lands?
2.5. It's not that big.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's why adding to a Toontown or adding to a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Than like a self-contained
Squeezing
land,
in.
right? I think they want a land. I think they want a food component to it. I think they want an attraction component to it. I think they, all those kind of things really help sell these projects because of the ROI, right? If it can make money on its own and make it back within 5 years, well, there you go. That's where you get these big expansions from. I just don't think there's quite enough room for something in isolation to be there. But Disney Fan 55 brings up a good point. A breezeway between this and Galaxy's Edge, Toontown and Galaxy's Edge, would be very nice to have for sure, no matter what that theme in the middle is.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then one other thing I wanted to kind of bring up about my trip yesterday to the parks was Indiana Jones finally rode it after this big refurb, and the ride looks fantastic. The vehicles even feel different, right? Like I was telling these guys, it's like when your car gets like a really good oil change, like it just runs like so much better. The vehicle just had more bounce. As Ice Cube, more bounce to the ounce. No, but no, it did. It had more bounce to them. It felt healthier, right? The attraction itself, the effects, everything was just boom, 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 on point. The new effects were fantastic. The crumbling temple and the lightning that replaced the rat room and just the dark room, all looked really, really good. But one thing of note that I wanted to bring up, when we were in the queue, there was a young couple in front of us, and the kid was trying to like impress his like girlfriend or something, and he was like, "Hey, check this out, check this out." And we go up to that hallway with the falling ceiling, right? And the bamboo thing was already bent. And I'm like, oh man, this poor kid, he's trying to impress this girl, right? And he's gonna look like a fool when he tries to pull it, right? Because it's already bent, number one. But I didn't think it was gonna work because it really hasn't been working, right? He pulls it and it worked. It worked. At least the sounds and the thing was coming down, but it was bent. So yes, it's working, but not exactly how it was designed, right? But that's interesting, though, that it even reacted at all to this kid pulling it. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I've seen this before where it's kind of like it's bent, but you can still pull on it and still works. And sometimes, yeah, that maintenance technician, he's got to go in there at an interval and kind of tighten it up, ratchet it up so that it's straight when it needs to be and bent when it's actually in progress. It's a fascinating thing how these things are tugged and pulled and what people do when they're actually in queues. We've seen this at Mickey Mouse Runaway Railway recently, where we have some items of being stripped off of these condiment stations as part of this theater complex that is attempting to be evoked by the theme of Mickey Mouse Runaway Railway there. When you have people in a queue for an extended period of time, they tend to take that out on the environment around them. It's super unfortunate, but that's the difference between our parks and the Japanese parks, right? They don't necessarily do that, and that's why their queues and their environments are so much more intricate, because they know the culture will accept those and leave them be. It's sad. It's why we don't have nice things.
Right. Exactly.
But I'm glad to see that Indiana Jones is working great as well as it does in video. OG, I think you were really impressed with what you saw there, and that is great to see. It's still having some issues, however. It's got a lot of downtime recently, and that that hasn't helped things. I know Big Thunder has had some downtime, and that goes back to our coaster conversation. Maybe they're getting some parts in there, and that's why there's I think a 10 or 13-day refurb for that one. India just came up from refurb, and maybe they did some infrastructural upgrades that they're still getting the hang of, and so forth. And maybe they did include that software package. I'm not sure, but I think these things will be ironed out. But it is unfortunate that we're having some downtime. So we'll see. Disney Fan 55 actually said something interesting about the strollers here. They need like a Carvana stroller parking. So have you seen these garages that like in Asia, for example? I think Japan, they feature these because space is at a premium. They have these garages, which is it's like a vending machine, how it operates, where it kind of like swivels at multiple levels, and it comes up, and you get your car out, and there you go. Maybe they need that for that space inside the old Jolly Trolley station for the strollers, right? And then maybe that might alleviate some problems in that area for sure. I believe Disney Fan 55 also said something very interesting about your point about the cruise liner. If you scroll up there, says this: in general, foreign flagged cruise ships, which all of the cruise ships are under Disney, are required to visit at least one non-U.S. port so that they cannot benefit from sailing exclusively with U.S. waters, skirting U.S. tax and labor laws. So that's why like we had thought before, that's why you have to go to Canada to visit Alaska. That's why you have to visit Canada to go to Hawaii. Yeah, and San Diego next port has to be another city in Florida as well. So that's kind of how they work it. And that's what's going on there. So I thought that was very interesting to bring up here. But I'm glad to see Toontown all operating nicely. The Disney Afternoon stuff and the Disney Channel stuff that's been integrated, like with Goofy's house, for example, even Chip and Dale's Gadget Go Coaster with Gadget actually there and Zipper actually there, even the stuff in Donald's boat where you see Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby in the actual ship. Those are all kind of cool things and kind of modernize it up and really play off that both nostalgia and relevancy that we have come to expect from Disney. So that's I'm glad to see that was working. It's very popular, and this right here, this point between the Good Boy Grocers Market and Goofy's house in particular, man, super tight.
Super tight. Now, also another thing, I think we have some pictures here of the fountain, which is actually working now. We did a show on this. We were getting kind of worried. The first few days, it was real hit and miss with this fountain. They kept roping it off. I was there yesterday, and it was up. I mean, at least for the hours. Several hours that I was there, it was up and working, and kids were playing in it. Still very wet. I guess that's the point of the whole thing. I guess I personally look. I'm obviously not a child, so I obviously don't like that. I don't want to go up to something and become soaking wet. But hey, for kids, they seem to be really liking it, and I'm just glad that it's working. I was really worried that this thing was going to get jolly trolleyed and just become like a
thing
a
of the
broken
past.
fixture. Yeah, broken
So
fixture.
This photo in particular was sent to me while actually we're doing the show here. So this is a live shot of the Mickey and Minnie fountain right here. So it is on as of, if you're watching this live right now. So that is good, to your point, OG. And yeah, it's soaked around the area. I'm not sure why. I think Ops is going to want to take a look at that. I think they do. But hey, at least it's on. At least people can actually play in and around it. That's great to see.
Yeah, no, it really looks really pretty in person. I gotta say, it really brings the whole area together. It really pops. The paint they used on Mickey and Minnie is like car paint or something.
Yeah,
and it was just a beautiful, bright, sunny day, and it just glistened with the water and everything. It just looked fantastic. So it's a great little addition. It's a great little addition to the to the land. And I also want to say too, the hills that were kind of done out of necessity to hide the Runaway Railway building.
Yeah.
When you get into like Mickey's house and all that little area,
Residential side.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad that they were forced to make that taller. It really does bring you into the land. It's a much more immersive experience because of the height involved. You can see there with these hills. It just looks fantastic all the way down to the residential area. Really, really great stuff. So yeah, high marks overall for Toontown. Again, the sound package really surprised me. I have not heard anyone else talk about that. SoCal Imagine mentioned in the chat that he's like, oh yeah, is that what that was? So people are hearing it, but no one's reporting on it. I don't know. I don't understand why. It's a great addition to the land.
It's really interesting because I believe, what was it? It was Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was the first one to actually include Dolby Atmos as part of its sound package. And you can hear, right? You can hear the TIE fighters shooting over you or the ships shooting above your head. Flying over your head as you're walking through the land. It's really kind of immersive. It's really, really cool. And obviously you can imagine how that would actually do in a setting in which you had a show take place and so forth. You can see where you're going here. But it looks like they've integrated some of that at least for Mickey's Toontown. That's awesome to have like a cartoon train past your head as you're kind of walking under those the railroad, to have kind of cartoon birds and kind of immerse you in a multi-sensory environment rather than just how aesthetically pleasing it is. That's really, really cool. I'm glad to see that they didn't forget about the audio guys when actually implementing changes to this line.